Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited to have a Boston-based entrepreneur here in today's episode because this is someone who is always committed to refining his skills, teaching others, and putting great solutions out into the world. This is someone who's juggling working in academia as a professor. He has his PhD. This is someone who's super accomplished from the academic side of the coin, as well as starting and running and growing a business in the tech space that brings really important solutions to so many different businesses. So let me tell you about today's guest. His name is Ajay Joshi. Ajay is the co-founder and CEO of CipherSonic Labs, which is a startup offering a game-changing cloud-based cybersecurity solution designed for enterprises to securely share and collaboratively process data with other enterprises. In his other life, he is a professor in the electrical and computer engineering department at Boston University. Before joining BU, he was at MIT, so still in the Boston area, and before that at Georgia Tech. He has had industry stints at Google, Intel, and Lightmatter. So yes, he introduced me when I came across his LinkedIn. I've never seen ex-Googlers put their name as literally X and then Google without the G. So I love the fact that Ajay has been in the tech space, refining those skills, and then has taken the plunge while still being a professor. There's so much to his journey that I'm excited to hear about. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Ajay Joshi. All right, Ajay, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Heck yes, you do so many cool things, Ajay. You're very accomplished in so many different regards, but you've got to take us beyond the bio. Who is Ajay? How'd you start doing all these awesome things?
I basically focus on things that get me excited to come to work. This is a question that I often get, like, how do I choose my field? How do I choose what do I work on? So my typical answer is work on something that gets you excited to come to work on Monday mornings. Those are the most challenging days of the week. That is the most challenging day of the week. And so that's what I do. So lately I have been excited about cybersecurity, and I've done some good work with my students at BU. And one of the work was related to homomorphic encryption that led to the startup, and me and my former student, now co-founder, we founded this company and we are chugging along trying to save the world one day at a time.
Yes, I love that overview, especially because right away you went right to that purpose and that passion. So I've got to ask you about that because I know that your journey into this field, of course, didn't happen when you started your business. It happened way before that, not even when you were a professor, but all the way back to your days as a student. And I would imagine even before that. So where did that passion come from? What was your first exposure into the world of not just IT, but cybersecurity and going as deep into it as you are today?
So if we really go back into my past, the first inspiration, maybe it came from my parents. So both of them are doctors by profession, and they run their own clinics. And if you think about it in some way, they are running a small business. They have their employees. They are dealing with patients who are the customers. And so I guess that thread was always there at the back of my mind. But I got my PhD, went down the academic track, always thought I might have a startup at some point. The opportunity didn't come along. The cybersecurity, you can say it's something that has been at the back of my mind. I myself had an identity theft issue back here when I was in grad school, which was challenging to deal with, but I dealt with it, and then I was like, okay, let's get on with life. That's fine, happens to everyone, can happen to everyone, it doesn't necessarily happen to everyone. But then I started my research group. I started looking at cybersecurity, and my student, Rashmi, who's the co-founder, she went through the same challenge. As a student, her identity got hacked. Credit cards were basically drawn on her name, and that created a problem. And then we started wondering, maybe we should do something about this. Maybe we should tackle the grand cybersecurity challenges. Started looking around, and then homomorphic encryption was one of the grand challenges. Rashmi did excellent work. She solved the problem, and we realized, wait, why limit all this just to these papers that we publish or presentations that we give? Why don't we bring it to the market? Why don't we make this accessible to everyone? And so that's where the idea of startup took root. And then we started the company. We are chugging along, talking to customers, raising capital, developing the IP. Hopefully, we'll be one of the go-to companies for cybersecurity in the future.
Yes, I love that, Ajay. Honestly, I love the fact that you really simplify it for our listeners about taking it step by step because, as you said, it literally changes the world. I mean, this is a big problem and it's only going to get more serious. You already alluded to the fact that we face it on the consumer level. When we talk about identity theft, I mean, that's a real risk factor for so many of us. And then on the flip side, on a way bigger scale, is obviously that enterprise level. So talk to us about CipherSonic Labs. Obviously, you've identified that enterprise side of the equation. What was your thought process there in deploying it in that way or really targeting it that way to make that bigger change?
So it was almost a case of a perfect storm, as they call it. So these days, all companies are using machine learning, but they don't necessarily have the resources to run machine learning workloads. So the thinking is, okay, I'll go to the cloud, AWS, Azure, they offer these fantastic cloud services. Let's run things there. The problem is that when you run things in the cloud, today, data gets run in non-encrypted form, in the sense that, let's say I'm looking for restaurant recommendations. I open the app, I go to Yelp, and then I look at restaurants. So all my personal data is with Yelp, which then will be sent to the cloud. In the cloud, there'll be some processing done on my information, and then I'll get a response back saying that, hey, you're in Boston, go to restaurant X or go to restaurant Y. Now, while my data is sent to the cloud or while it is being stored in the cloud, we are fine. Data is encrypted, no problem. But while processing the data, while Yelp is running, say, sophisticated machine learning models on my data cannot be encrypted. And that's where things can be challenging. And I'm not picking on Yelp. This is just the case for all enterprise companies out there who, when they send the data to the cloud, data has to be processed in non-encrypted form. And that makes it very attractive to attackers, saying that, hey, here is all this bunch of data to be harvested. We can do bad things out of this. And so we started wondering what to do with this. So we said, okay, homomorphic encryption is the solution where we can keep data protected in the cloud on the enterprise side by keeping it encrypted at all times. So during the entire life cycle, data will stay encrypted. And so in transit, while it is at rest, and while it's at processing. And so the thinking was that if we can bring this solution to the enterprise side, then the clients, the companies that are using these cloud, they can have peace of mind that, okay, I'm going to the cloud, but my data is protected. My end users are happy. I don't have to worry about paying extensive fines, or I don't have to worry about my users getting upset that data got compromised. So that was the thinking behind having this solution for enterprise clients.
Yeah, I love hearing that, especially in a word. I mean, you obviously talk about machine learning. Where my head goes as an end consumer is obviously that plays a lot into the world of AI, which leads me to really, I mean, the simple conclusion about all of our AI usage is that we're putting even more of our data unfiltered into all of these AI tools. I personally, with the AI tools that I use, I mean, I'm uploading episode data information, show notes, transcripts, all of that. At this point, AI knows more about my show than I do because we give all of our transcripts to it. So it has all of this data. Now, fortunately, none of that stuff is sensitive that we're talking about here today, but for a lot of companies, it is. Bigger companies are uploading financial data, customer data. Talk to us about I guess the increasing data exposure risks of AI tools that we're now all leaning on even more within the business world. This is only going to become a bigger problem. I'd love to hear your perspective on the way that AI is actually encouraging us to give more of our data away.
So I guess there are two sides of the coin. That's how I look at it. In one case, AI has access to all this data, and it is, as you said, maybe the AI tools know more about the podcast than you do. But if you were able to get that information, right? If you were to tell an AI model or one of the LLM models and say, can you extract some novel insight from all this data that you have collected about my podcast over the years? That will create a lot of value to you, right? Then you will know exactly what worked, what didn't work, how can I position myself moving forward, what would be the strategy that would be adopted. But that means that your data has to be shared with the cloud. Right? Of course, the other flip side, as I mentioned, the issue is that not everybody is comfortable sharing the data, so they do lose out on AI being able to provide them with good quality service. So using homomorphic encryption gives you that sweet spot, right, where you say, okay, you want access to my data, fine, you are this nice AI model who's going to tell me interesting things based on my data, but I'm going to use homomorphic encryption. I'm going to keep my data encrypted all the time. So can AI now still help me? And AI models can say, yes, we can still help you. We can still run our models on your encrypted data, generate novel insight, and give you much better service than what you received before. So AI, it's a double-edged sword. I've heard a lot about that, but if we use it the right way, I feel that it can totally change the game, totally open up more doors than we would have thought before.
Yeah, Ajay, I love hearing your perspective on all of this. The way that you love cybersecurity, obviously, I feel that way about business and entrepreneurship. And so I want to ask you this next question. It's a bit of a business nerd type of question, but that is, it sounds like everybody benefits from your cyber encryption and your cybersecurity solution. And so my question to you from a business perspective is, where's that demand driven by? Because I really see two sides of it, is that as a consumer, if I choose to use a large language model, I want to demand that they are responsible with my data. And of course, if that's something that I value, I get to vote with my wallet. Now, on the flip side, the marketing departments of all of these tools also want to brag about how much the encryption is important to them. And so if the market values that, then these companies will be further incentivized to invest in good cybersecurity. So the question is this something that you envision, when we talk about cybersecurity changing the world in positive ways, do you think that demand will and should be driven by consumers, or is it going to come from the providers, the enterprise level companies themselves, of saying, this is something that we're prioritizing, we're putting money behind, whether the market values it or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I believe that the consumer today is a lot more aware of the challenges with their own data than maybe 10, 15 years ago. And so consumers do demand that their data be protected. Consumers do demand that their data is used in ethical ways. So I feel that there is a big push, and is continuing to be a big push from the consumer side, that whenever I use some service from an enterprise client, I will demand that keep my data protected. Tell me exactly how you are going to use my data. And that then the onus is on the cloud provider and the enterprise client to say, we understand, we want to protect your data. So here are some there is an interesting technology that we are going to bring to the market, which can keep your data protected. And the good thing is, since your data is, I'm talking about homomorphic encryption here, because we are using homomorphic encryption, your data is encrypted, you don't have to worry about data breaches. Feel free to share more data so we can give you better service. So you can almost look at this as like a positive feedback mechanism, where consumers demand something, the companies say, great, we have this fantastic solution. Consumers are like, great, this is going to work for me. Here is some more data, help me or give me better service. Then if you go back to the enterprise clients, more data, better models, AI models are going to then do better job, and then the service to the customer improves. So you can look at it as a nice positive feedback loop that can benefit everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Ajay, I'm trusting you with this next question because I also know that you've got a professor hat where you can explain very complex things very nicely. And that is about the actual encryption, because obviously this is not a technical show. People may not fully understand the intricacies and the complexities and beauties of the solution that you're bringing to the marketplace. But you put such a strong emphasis, and I know it's part of what makes CipherSonic Labs what it is, but the homomorphic encryption-based approach. What the heck does that mean? And what are some of the alternatives? For those of us who have seen different encryption approaches, I'm thinking about all the work that I previously did within SQL databases. You have to decrypt certain things, but talk to us about what's different about your encryption approach and why that's the best way.
So today we use something called AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, that has been around for a long time. It's pretty much baked into all the computing systems that we use today. The new encryption technology called homomorphic encryption, the core math behind it, that has been around for some time. That was invented back in the 80s. And it's based on a different type of math, lattice-based cryptography. The challenge with that technology is that, or actually, let me take a step back. The way that technology works is that if I do A plus B on non-encrypted data, then I can do encrypted data A, encrypted data B. I can add those two encrypted values, and then the result that I get is also an encrypted form. And if I decrypt that result, that will be the correct result. So doing A plus B in non-encrypted form, it's equivalent to doing encrypted A plus encrypted B to give me the encrypted result. And so that's how the things match. Now, the idea behind this, right, where the core math behind homomorphic encryption, that has been around for some time. We didn't invent that, but the problem was it was super slow. I mean, there was no way this was going to be practical, and so it basically stayed in academic research where it was, here's a cute idea, you can keep data encrypted, but it's not practical, never going to see the light of the day. Let's not bother about it. But it didn't die. The people kept working on it, and over the last 5-10 years or so, there has been this big jump in the improvements that we have seen. Partly because the cybersecurity issues of cybersecurity challenges have grown, and there is this need for something more concrete, something more robust, something that gives strong data security and privacy guarantees. And so what we did was we said, this math is great, not practical. How can we make it practical? How can we bring this to the whole world? And we realized that, okay, we are computer engineers. The first thing we do is try to understand the problem, try to understand the algorithm, try to understand the workload that is going to run on our computing system. So we analyzed what exactly is happening in that homomorphic encryption. And we said, okay, do we need to have more memory? Do we need to have more compute, or is communication the problem? We realized, oh, memory is the problem, communication is the problem, compute not so much. So we started attacking the problem from that side, and then said, okay, what do we need to do to really solve the communication problem and memory problem? And then we said, okay, that's fine, but it shouldn't be a case where there is a solution which will take 10 years to come to the market. That doesn't make sense. And so can we use the technology, the hardware that we have today to deploy this homomorphic encryption? And that's where FPGAs came into the picture, which are already there today. They're there in the cloud. Our solution uses those FPGAs. It can be deployed in the cloud right away. So the core technology, homomorphic encryption, the idea is to keep data encrypted at all times. And then our company basically has figured out a way to make that technology practical using a variety of algorithmic ideas, hardware ideas, and software ideas.
Yeah, Ajay, I'm going to call this out publicly because part of what I think is your unfair advantage is you have that rare combination of the academic world, but also with the practical applications. We could talk about your past career. Obviously, you've worked for some of the most impressive tech companies out there. You're an ex-Googler. You've worked at Intel. And so we have that practical side of the equation. But now you're talking about, and you revealed it right there in that answer about how the academic world is pushing the envelope when it comes to research and finding new ways to do things. You're uniquely situated in that you've been deep into both of those worlds, which a lot of times those solutions never come to the light of the world because it takes the private industry, it takes entrepreneurship and in business and profit incentives and a lot of other positive sides of how I argue that entrepreneurship changes the world. It takes that to bring these solutions to see the light of day and to actually make a difference in the world. Talk to us about that unique setting for you, because I'm sure that is different in your industry, that you bring that research backed approach, but also the practical experience you've picked up.
So I would actually like to give a shout out to my mentors. When I was a grad student and when I was at MIT, they emphasized that whatever you do, make sure there is practicality to it. Make sure that whatever you're doing can actually come to the market. Don't work on something obscure which nobody cares about. So that motivation or that aspect of thinking has always been there. And I was lucky enough to work at Intel, work at Google, also work at Lightmatter. So while working there, talking to engineers, understanding how is their line of thinking. They do also care about new ideas. They also do care about coming up with novel circuits or novel architectures or novel systems. But they are grounded in the reality. And they are grounded that, is this really going to work? Is this something that I can deploy in the next 3 years or 4 years? And so that helped me set my mindset that it's okay to think about blue sky ideas. It's okay to think I'm going to design the next best piece of hardware. But is it practical? Can it really be done? And so, in fact, a shout out to my postdoc advisor who always says, we can't fool Mother Nature. So whatever you do, make sure that it's actually practical and can actually be prototyped. So that's how the mindset developed, and that helped me stay grounded, helped me keep my one leg in academia where I can do work with these fantastic grad students and colleagues and think about ideas, and then other leg on the industry side where my industry colleagues keep me grounded by saying, yeah, this is interesting but will not fly. Can you come up with some other ideas? So it helps me keep grounded, helps me come up with this balance of things.
Yeah, I love to hear that real life advice, especially since it's happening on a beautiful campus sitting right on the Charles River outside of Boston and Cambridge. It's very cool to hear how your mentor's influence has really shaped your perspective and your entrepreneurial beginnings. So huge shout out to everyone who's been involved in your journey. Ajay, I want to ask you about your professional career, because when I list those companies, people are inherently going to be impressed by the fact that you've worked at these tech giants, but I want to hear the inside scoop. I'm sure you picked up things along the way where you thought that's best practice and I want to bring that with me throughout my career. But also, as a tech co-founder and CEO, you have the chance to be nimble and to do things a little bit differently. So I'd love to hear both sides of that coin from you.
Yeah. So one interesting thing that I heard during my time at the industry, that there are large companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, who are like, or we can call them elephants, where if they move, then it completely changes the scenery. It completely changes how things work. Then there are companies, smaller companies who are at the scale of a gazelle or a deer, who are very nimble, can change directions relatively quickly, and then can carve out a niche. And there are very small companies, which are size of a mouse, maybe, who are good but can get squashed easily. Right? So the challenge is to make sure that you fit in the right, depending on what stage you are. You be careful. If you're size of a mouse, then watch out. Be careful about what other people are doing. Move faster, and then hopefully you'll grow into a gazelle where you do influence the industry, but you are able to change directions relatively easily. And then eventually you can become a giant like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, where size of an elephant, which can completely change the game with a single decision. So there are these interesting perspectives that I've heard during my time, and that did influence my way of thinking. The main thing is that be brave, go out there, try to do something challenging. You'll have regrets about the shots that you don't take rather than the shots that you took and failed. So that's my outlook has been. I'm super excited about this company. I'm cautiously optimistic that our company will succeed. We'll be there for the long time, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Ajay, I love that perspective. I love analogies. So hearing you use the elephant, gazelle, and mouse analogy, it resonates deeply with me because I think it also speaks to the fact that there are advantages and disadvantages to both. An elephant can't turn nearly as quickly as a mouse can. However, every single step is felt much farther and much greater. So I love that analogy. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Ajay. Where's CipherSonic Labs going to be? When you look at your own growth trajectory, obviously taking on the cybersecurity industry is a huge thing. And I know that funding is part of it and your growth path. It is a step-by-step process, but I'd love to hear, when you think about where CipherSonic Labs is going, do you think 1 year out, 5 years out, 10 years out? What's the future of your company look like?
So we are right now the size of a mouse. I'll be honest, we're not that big yet. But in 5 years' time, we hope to be the size of a gazelle, where we can move quickly, change directions if required, but have an influence on the cybersecurity industry. And maybe 10, 15 years down the line, we are as big as an elephant. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about the needs of that industry, because obviously when you jump into an industry as big and far-reaching and important as yours, especially with enterprise-level solutions, you've talked about funding before, and obviously you and your past student, I love that that's your co-founding story. So I'd love to hear some additional insights there, but what are the things standing between you and your growth path right now? Is it resources, whether it's financial or technology-based? I'd love to hear some insights from the cybersecurity industry.
Yeah. So specifically for our company, we raising capital. That is one of the challenge, and hiring quality engineers who are committed to the cause. My general thinking is find the right people with whom you want to work with. If they are committed to the cause, if they trust you, if they believe you, then other things can be managed. I think money, customers, all those things can be handled. That's not a problem. But make sure your core team is strong. They are in it for the till the end and are trusting of each other. Broadly, cybersecurity industry, I would say that it's a cat and mouse game. Because today we come up with some solutions, then the bad guys come up with ways to circumvent those solutions, then we come up with new solution. So my thinking is, or my opinion is, cybersecurity will always be there. There will always be challenges to be solved. It's just a question of figuring out a way to be ahead of the game, figuring out a way to be ahead of the bad guys. So that way we can protect the data, protect the consumers, and give them quality service. We live in a data-driven society. Data is, there's the saying, right? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So it's like the hand that holds the data rules the world, in my opinion. So we need to protect that data. We need to make sure that the bad guys don't get access to the data. And then that way, individuals, consumers, they have peace of mind and get quality service.
Yeah, Ajay, I want to publicly call that out and praise that attitude that you just had on full display for us, because that's the abundance mindset that we hear so much about as entrepreneurs. Is that, sure, there are big questions that are going to come in your future, such as getting more customers, getting more capital and funding, and obviously revenue plays into that as well. But I love the fact that your attitude right there for us is, we'll figure those out. And that's always easy to figure out. There will always be more of those things, but you isolated it right there on the things that make businesses different and successful, which is, of course, the people, the teams, the talent behind it. So I want to ask you this, because you're, again, uniquely positioned. You're a professor. You stand in front of a classroom of students and see all the potential in the world for all these young minds who are hungry and ambitious, and they have big dreams. What's it look like for you in identifying and nurturing that talent? I'm super curious to hear about the attributes or the things that you look for when you're onboarding people, or even just assessing them with regards to your dreams and visions.
Yeah. So putting my academic hat on, anytime I teach a class, my homework zero is to watch this movie called Three Idiots. Some of you, the listeners may know about this movie. This movie is relatively old. It came out in 2010, I believe. It's about an engineering college and three friends, and they were like so stressed out about getting good grades and getting a good job. And one of them says that, look, it's try to focus on excellence and success will follow. I'm paraphrasing it. They don't say it exactly like this, but focus on excellence and success will follow. And that's what I tell my students. They don't worry about grades. You are all smart kids. You are in college. You will figure out a way to do things, but focus on excellence. Try to be the best version of yourself, and success will follow. Don't worry about because success is a byproduct of the hard work that you put in. Right? It's not the end goal. That's not how you should look at it. And so same thing can be applied even to the company. Like any company, any employees that we onboard, any people we talk to, we are interested in folks who are interested in solving these cybersecurity problems, coming up with innovative solutions, who are customer focused, who really want to solve the problem, not worry about, hey, would we end up being a unicorn, or how much money will I make, how much equity will have. You'll get your money. You will do well in life. Don't worry about that. But find your passion, find what gets you excited to come to work, and then everything else will just fall in place.
Yes, Ajay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put you on a spot in just a minute to somehow give even better advice than you've already been giving throughout our conversation here today with the final question. But before we get there, I want to squeeze this one in, because I'm so fascinated by the fact that you are balancing all of the things in life, personally and professionally. You're a professor who's also growing and running a business. Talk to us about that, the work-life balance, which is a term I've never fully enjoyed, because I'm sure, just like me, you actually love the things that you do and it doesn't feel like work. But talk to us about that balance that you find in balancing and managing all of the things.
Yeah. So finding that balance is challenging. Thankfully, my wife is very supportive of all the work that I do. She herself is much more accomplished than I am. I just follow her, and even if I do 50% of what she does, I know I'll have a successful life. A very supportive partner, and then I have a son who also keeps me honest. The important thing that I do is make time for my family. There's always work to be done. Let's be honest. There's always something to be done. But spending time with your family every day, it's very important. And the other thing that I do is I do take care of my mental health and physical health. I meditate every day, 30 minutes every day. That helps me keep my sanity. And I do work out alternate days. I'm big into tennis, and I also used to run marathons back in the days. Don't do that anymore. I just do short distances these days. So doing these things, having a supportive family and doing these other activities on the side do help me a lot, help me I'm more productive. Something that would take 4 hours, I can finish in 2 hours, and then that way I can do more things. And I guess one other thing, I find your passion, find your non passion in their personal life. So I do perform on stage once or twice a year, and so that also helps me let out some steam, get out of the technical mode, and do something fun.
Yes. Listeners, I'm going to call this out for you that you see when I asked about work-life balance, Ajay went straight to the things outside of work that he does to keep himself sharp and healthy and sane. All of these things enable us to perform at our best and all the other things that we do. So I know how easy it is, trust me, I know firsthand, to just go deeper and deeper into your work. But Ajay, I love the fact that you called out these other things, especially because research has shown that tennis is the healthiest sport in the world. So
Yes.
huge shout out to all of us tennis players worldwide. And then I'm also going to call out all of us guys worldwide because, Ajay, as you just alluded to, I've always loved that quote of behind every great man is an even greater woman. So huge shout out to your wife for being so supportive throughout all of the journey that you're on personally and professionally as well. So Ajay, this is where I get to ask you the big question. And you've given us so much nuggets of knowledge here in today's conversation. But my final question is, what's that one best piece of advice, the one takeaway, knowing that listeners are tuning in at all different stages of their entrepreneurial journeys, both personally and professionally, as they seek to grow? So what's that one thing that you want to impart on them today?
I would say have faith in yourself. You will meet many people along your life journey. Some people who are supportive, some who are not, some who will say good things about you, some who might not say good things about you. But be yourself. Be true to yourself. Be aware of what you do. Have a good support system, but the main thing is trust yourself. You are on this planet for a reason. Try to find that reason.
Yes, great advice for all of us from start to finish, Ajay. I will say, having had the chance to interact with you here today, I'm so glad that there's people like you spearheading the world of cybersecurity, because it's something that all of us as consumers, whether we're ever going to be customers of yours at the enterprise level or we're just the consumers benefiting from it, it truly does change the world. So speaking of supporters, I know that the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur community worldwide is going to be excited to see your journey of being a mouse, going to a gazelle, and then one day to that elephant. So you've got to drop some links on us. Tell us where listeners can go to learn more about you, your work, and all the great things that your company is putting into the world.
So our website is cyphersoniclabs.io. You can find more information there. We are in stealth mode right now, so you'll just a little bit of information, but if you need more information, feel free to connect me on LinkedIn. Happy to meet over coffee in person or virtually through Zoom, and happy to tell you more about all the wonderful work we are doing.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We are dropping those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We'll link to Ajay's website, which he's not kidding when he says that they're in stealth mode. You will not find much there, but you will find so much more on his LinkedIn as well. So we are personally linking to that. Ajay, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.